Good morning, folks. Today we're going to learn about the planet Mercury, also called as Budha. Mercury represents intelligence, Mercury represents calculation. Mercury is very clever in nature. Mercury is a teenager, a prince who wants to have fun. He doesn't care about anybody, doesn't want to listen to anybody, but gets influenced by people because he's still a princely person. He represents relatives and friends. He is called as a Buddhikaraka, intelligence. And hence, if you have to choose a proper domain for your child where he can prosper, where he can excel, you'll have to look at the position of Mercury. You'll have to look at the fourth sign, the fourth lord, and then decide upon which area he can prosper. Mercury is a calculative guy, a very materialistic guy. And that's coming out, this is coming out in one of the Navagraha Suktas. Ubuddhya Swagne, Ishtapurte, Yuvanam. Ubbuddhiswagni, one who is a fire of intellect. Ishtapurte, one who can fulfill all desires. Yuvanam, a person who's youthful in nature, adolescent in nature. One who's calculative. And calculation is very important in life if we have to win over enemies. Intelligence is very important in life if you have to survive in this world. That's coming out in the avatars of Mahavishnu. All the Dashavatharams of Mahavishnu represent the mercurial quality to actually win over the evil. Narasimha Avatara, kind of calculation that Narasimha had to take in terms of assuming a Nara and Sharira, the half man and a half animal Sharira, and with all the calculations and all the principles that he had to put to kill Hiranyakashipu. That can happen only with the calculative and the intelligence of a Mercurian person. Mercury rules two signs in the zodiac system. One is the Mithuna Rashi, which is third from the Kalapurusha, and the Kanya Rashi, which is sixth from the Kalapurusha. Mercury represents speech. Mercury represents communication. So if you look at the third house is the house of communication. Third house has got to do with a lot of things with your hands. And if you look at the sixth house represents debts. Sixth house represents enemies. Sixth house represents diseases. Sixth house is also a house of competition. So a person who actually has a strong Mercury, the Mercury placed in this house, Lagna lords, the Rashi lords, or the Mercury in the sixth house, he will win over enemies because he's very good in talking, he's very good in communicating. He cannot have enemies, right? And he will do a lot of communication, and he will be good in finance because it's got to do with calculation. So he can actually arrange finance through loans and borrowings. He can be very good in business. Mercury represents business. A strong Mercurian chart will actually be doing good in business, trade, competition. He can win over competition. He represents newspaper. He represents emails, he represents the IT industry, he represents the magazines or souvenirs, he represents the electronic media, be it radio or TV. And the kind of domain that your child can choose, what is the kind of education, which is the subject that he can choose, depends upon where Mercury is posited, what the fourth house is, how strong is the fourth house, and also the fourth lord, because fourth house also signifies education. So you'll have to look at the strength of the fourth house, the strength of the fourth lord, and then where Mercury, the strength of Mercury, where it is placed, and then decide upon the education. Navagraha Sukta says, Slishta Vak Satata Hasya Ruchi, Pitta Maruta Kapha Prakritischa. Mercury signifies all the trigunas, tridoshas, whether it is Pitta, Kapha or Vata. He is an embodiment of all this. However, depending upon the sign where it is placed, look at where Mercury is placed, whether it is placed in an airy sign or a watery sign or an earthy sign, and then decide upon what is the kind of domain that he can choose. For example, if Mercury is placed in an airy sign, he might do well in flying an aircraft, for example, airy. So watery sign, communication through road. So we'll have to look if it's a watery sign, communication through sea. If it's an earthy sign, communication through road. So we'll have to look at the position of these signs, and if you want to know what each sign is, what is the karakatva of a sign, I've done a video on the rashis, all the 12 rashis, what each of these rashis is about, and that will help you understand how you can decide whether it is a watery sign or an airy sign or an earthy sign. And he rules the northern direction, while in the zodiac system Mercury is placed in the northeast. Mercury rules the northern direction, and he's green in color, and his gemstone is emerald. Mercury rules the 7th month of pregnancy, and Mercury is also a signifier of skin. So, if there is any skin related issue, if there's any issue with regard to speech, then we'll have to look at the position of Mercury and also the strength of the second house. Mercury is exalted in Kanya, and his Mula Trikona is also Kanya, and is debilitated in Pisces. Now, Mercury is princely in nature, youthful, adolescent. So he gets influenced very easily, right? So we'll have to look at what are the planets associated with Mercury, what are the other planets in conjunction with Mercury, because those planets will start influencing him very easily, because he's just a youth, a young guy, gets influenced very easily. So if Mercury is associated with Mars, for example, then he can actually get into something technical. So he can be in the IT industry as part of the technical team, right? He can be a programmer writing code, or he can be in the product team completely into development activity, very technical in nature. Nothing to do with the service industry. So because Mars is engineering, Mars has got to do with a lot of engineering. Let's say Mercury is associated with Venus. Venus is what? Venus is something artistic. Venus has got to do a lot of things with respect to beauty. So when Mercury and Venus gets together, then he can do well in the cinema industry, where it has got to do with a lot of communication. You can do well with textile. You can do well with interior decoration. You can do well with the fashion designing, architectural engineering. Or Venus has got to do with also genetics. So he can do well even with genetic science, right? Arts and finance, for example. Let's say Mercury is conjunct with Saturn. Saturn is about waste, and he can do well with waste management, and he can also do well with respect to environment engineering, and he can also do well in IT, in the area of automobile or structural engineering. And since it is associated with Saturn, he can do well with respect to any machine related activity, or grinding machines or printing technology. Saturn is all about hard work. And if Mercury is associated with Moon, Moon is what? Moon is actually Anna. Moon is also watery. Moon has got to do with something to do with mother. And hence he can get involved in something to do with agriculture, or in the marine industry, or with respect to food technology or agriculture. And then something to do, Moon is also with respect to mind, so he can also do well in psychology, and he can be in pharmacy or in animal husbandry. Let's say Mercury is associated with Sun. Sun is all about father. Sun is about government. Sun is about boss. So we can, and since Sun is along with Mercury, which is calculative in nature, he can do well in the in government, IAS, or in political science. He can be a journalist. He can also be a neurosurgeon or a physician. Medical science got to do with anything to do with skin. Let's say Mercury is conjunct with Rahu. Rahu actually has got to do with teeth, so he can be into dentistry. Rahu is also got to do with mantra vidya, and he can also do something with respect to the forest science. Or Rahu is all about foreign, because he was never part of the cabinet ministry, so he can actually learn some foreign language as well. Now let's say Mercury is conjunct with Ketu. Ketu is a planet of obstruction. So if Mercury is conjunct with Ketu, or if Ketu is sitting in the 4th house, very difficult for kids to actually study. You will have to understand that. But that's not the end of it. Definitely, if Ketu is playing a role in education, you will see kids not willing to learn, not struggling to go to school. Don't push them into something which you like or which others are saying is the best domain for that child to get in. He can actually do certain things which is related to tin, because Ketu signifies tin, and he can also get into something called as Vishavidya, where he can learn how to cure snake bites. So these are very specific domain areas where he can actually excel, and it has worked a lot. Similarly, Rahu in the fourth house, he may not be interested in studies. He may be intelligent. Maybe his Mercury is somewhere, working, and he may actually be, but he will never go to school. He might not score well in marks. So in such cases, it's better that you look at the horoscope and find what's bothering him. And it's only your horoscope which will tell you where exactly you need to take measure, right? Now, let's say Mercury is conjunct with Jupiter. Excellent combination, right? Because Jupiter signifies wisdom and Mercury is intelligence, and both these two coming together is a wonderful combination, because Jupiter is the Jnana Karaka with the Buddhi Karaka. He can get into something called as Jiva Vidya. He can be a doctor, a veterinary doctor as well, and he can also get into. These people can be a good, CEOs or CFOs rather, and they can also get into Vedas, because Jupiter is involved here, and Jupiter is nothing but the Guru, right? They can get into Adhyatma Vidya or philosophy, right? They'll be interested in learning additional languages. They can be a PG in languages, or they can also be good in literature and astrology, and they also tend to understand the self. A pure Mercury alone will not be interested in understanding the self. They are more materialistic in nature. But the moment Jupiter comes, they start tending to understand the self, and that's when they get into Vedas. So if Mercury is just alone, he will be interested in materialistic stuff. So you will have to look at the position of Mercury plus also the 11th house, because the 11th house also tells the gains, right? So both has to be matched, and then accordingly you will have to put your child, and also look at the 10th house to decide where exactly he can prosper in his profession. A typical Mercurian is good looking. He's a very good communicator, and these people, especially Mercury is in the third house, they can become very good writers, because third house signifies hands, and Mercury is for speech and communication. They're fantastic diplomats, and that's the reason where they become good business guys, right? The most flexible planet on Earth is Mercury. These people are very flexible and composed. Mercury is, if you want to propitiate to Mercury, the japas are 4,000, the homas are 400, 40 tarpanas, and the Graha Shanti is for 4 days, and it is good that if you do the Graha Shanti on a Wednesday on a Vishaka star, and the mantra to be chanted is Om Budaya Namaha, and this has to be chanted 1008 times. At the end of it, the gift that is offered is gold. Mercury's Adidevata is Vishnu, and Pratyadi Devata is Mahavishnu, and Abhimani Devata is again Vishnu. The sacred wood for fire is Samit or Apamarga, and the Naivedya for this is the Milkova, also called as the Palgova, and the idol is made of gold, and the Agni is called as Jataragni. The Vimshuthari Dasha period is 17 years. Mercury is also a eunuch. His enemy is Moon, and his friends are Sun and Venus. His neutrals are Kuja, Guru, and Shani. So that's about Mercury, and I'll end this video with a small Navagraha Sukta about Mercury, which actually symbolizes whatever we spoke now. Priyangu Kalika Shyamam Rupena Apratimam Budham Saumyam Saumya Rupenam Tambudam Pranamamyaham. Thanks for watching this video. Have a good day, and please leave your comments in the comment section. Happy to answer your questions, and see you with a new topic tomorrow. Thanks for watching. Bye bye.